Did you miss me? I've been in hiding.
It's Sissy's Soup.
Well, it's true. I've been in hiding. You won't believe it. About a year ago, I was checking my Instagram and I saw that somebody had slid into my DMs. That means somebody direct messaged me, in case you're out of the loop. Anyway, somebody had sent me a message. He had an Arab name. The message said, "How are you today, my beautiful one?" Normally, I would not have responded, but I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I have a soft spot for Muslims. They get such a bad rap. And it was sweet, so I messaged him back, "I'm doing very well, thank you." In a minute, he writes back, "I'm suffering." So I wrote back, "OMG, what's the matter?" And he wrote back, bless his heart, "I'm suffering because you aren't here beside me." Well, that gave me a chuckle. I thought, somebody's pulling my leg. And then, just for a second, I thought, this person could be a serial killer. So I started going through his Instagram, and I liked a fell over dead. In almost all the photos was this distinguished-looking gentleman. You could tell he was really important, and most of the pictures were in Dubai. There were pictures of him with all these heads of state, the Obamas, Queen Elizabeth, even the Pope. He was in a helicopter in one picture, playing polo in another, dressed to the nines at Ascot in another. He seemed to have quite the life. And he had at least 2 wives already. Thing 1 and thing 2. But I just thought this whole thing had to be some kind of elaborate joke. I mean, really. So I wrote back, "Well, you're just going to have to suffer because we're almost 8,000 miles apart." And he comes right back, "I can make those miles disappear." Well, something happened about that time. I guess I saw a squirrel. Either the dog barked or I got a phone call, but I started doing something else and I forgot all about it. The next day, Velma Thompson came over around noon. She was up in arms about the new Baptist minister. He has a tattoo on his neck. I got her to calm down, and we sat out on the porch drinking iced tea. When all of a sudden, 2 Rolls Royces pull up in my driveway in Riverview. The cars had Dubai flags sticking up on the hood. I know my flags. 2 Arabs got out of the first car. They were wearing those long white robes with scarves on their heads. One of them had an armful of flowers, and the other one had a little velvet box. And they walked right up to me on the porch and bowed. I just sat there. Velma almost choked on her tea. Bless her heart. Well, the one man handed me the flowers, and the other man opened the box and held it out for me. Inside was a necklace with what looked like diamonds and sapphires. I just kept staring at him. Somebody should have taken a picture. Velma said, "Sissy, take the necklace for God's sake." And the man said, "Yes, please, Miss Sissy, it's for you." He had beautiful English. "It's a gift from His Highness." His Highness? Really? Somebody had gone to a lot of trouble. Lord knows Velma Thompson isn't smart enough to pull off something like that. Bless her heart. Well, about that time, the driver of the second car got out and opened the back door, and a man in a beautiful suit got out. I recognized him right away. It was the man from Instagram. I was still stunned. I sort of waved, and he nodded his head a little bit and smiled. Now, while I'm sitting there trying not to faint, they were putting the necklace around my neck. And all of a sudden, the Instagram man is right there on the porch next to me. One of the Arabs said, "May I present His Highness Sheikh so-and-so such and such." This really was an elaborate joke. I don't want to give you his name because it's not a good idea. His Highness points to the chair beside me and says, "May I?" And without waiting for me to answer one way or another, he sits right down. Then he says, "It's so wonderful to finally meet you in person, Sissy." Then he starts telling me how he follows me on Instagram and he watches my YouTube channel and he knows all about me. I just sat there without saying a word, smiling like an idiot. Then he turned to Velma and said, "I know who you are too. You're not to be trusted." Velma's jaw dropped so far it almost broke her knee. I said, "He's got you there, Velma. Now go put these flowers in water, please, and get His Highness a glass of iced tea." Then he says to me, "You seem to be surprised to see me." And I'm still thinking it's a joke, but I said, "Surprised does not begin to cover it." He said, "Well, I did message you that I was coming." I said, "Really?" He nodded. So I picked up my phone to check on it, and sure enough, there was the message. "I'll see you tomorrow, my beautiful one." I'd missed it altogether. So here I am, sitting on the front porch drinking tea with a sheik, 2 Arabs hovering over us like drones, 2 Rolls Royces in the yard, and Velma Thompson. Then His Highness tells me he would like me to become his wife and go live with him in Dubai. I was stunned, flabbergasted, slain in the spirit. I sort of choked out, "But you've already got 2 wives." He laughed and said, 6, actually. I frowned at him. This was a little too much for me. Then while he was going on and on about what a wonderful life I would have, it hit me. This was on the level. At that point, I think I had a vision of Janet Jackson running around that complex in a burqa while she was going to have that baby with that billionaire. She didn't even have on any makeup. It was awful. I looked at Velma, and she was just standing there with her mouth open with the iced tea sweating in her hand. I said, "Velma, give the man his tea and close your mouth." He laughed at that. Velma gave a pitiful little curtsy and handed him his tea. I turned to him and said, "You seem to be very nice, and I'm certainly flattered, but I'm not interested in getting married." Well, one of the Arab men let out what was probably a string of cuss words in Arabic. I must have said the wrong thing. The sheik just laughed and said, "You Americans live in such a small world." I said, "Well, you got a point there." The sheik gave his men some orders in Arabic, and they went and stood off a good ways from us. Then he gave Velma Thompson a withering gaze, and she headed off into the house. When we were alone, he told me he just couldn't get me out of his mind. He thought about me all the time. He looked at my pictures. Then he starts telling me how I would live like a queen in Dubai and people would wait on me hand and foot. I said, "Frankly, that sounds terrible. I don't like being waited on." Well, this time it was his turn to be shocked. There was a long, awkward silence. Then he stood up, he kissed my hand, and he said, "I won't rest until you're by my side." And off he went. He barked something at the men. The driver opened his car door and he got in. And just like that, he was gone. Velma came back outside when she heard the cars leave. She looked right at me and she said, "Was that one of those terrorists?" I said, "Velma Thompson, you have got to stop watching Fox News." Well, after that, he sent me a gift every single day. I got enough flowers for a Masonic funeral, and jewelry, and clothes, and property. Sometimes I'd look out there in the yard and there'd be one of those Rolls Royces parked out there just sitting with somebody in there staring at me. And he started calling me constantly. I had to change my number over and over, but he always found it. I finally called the State Department and they sent some yahoos out here, but they were useless. They just kept saying I ought to consider accepting his offer. When I realized my own government was not going to help me, I decided to take things into my own hands. I thought the only thing to do was to hide out until he got over me. I tried to look at it like a vacation. First, I went to New York City, but he found me there pretty quickly. Then I went to Chicago, but he found me there too. I went to Denver, Seattle, Dallas. I finally ended up in Recapture, Utah. Yes, Recapture, Utah. Google it. When he found me there, I had finally had enough. This time, I called him up on the phone. I said, "Look, you are making me miserable. Stop it." There was a silence on the other end. So I repeated myself, "Stop it." He didn't say anything. I repeated myself again, "Stop it, or I will call your mother." And I hung up. Well, that did it. He stopped. Not another phone call. I got one more visit. This time from a team of lawyers. It seems the sheik felt so badly about all the trouble he caused me, having to run all over the United States trying to get a little privacy, that he opened a Swiss bank account in my name and he loaded it up with a fortune. I tried to refuse it, but the lawyers told me it was a done deal. The money was there whether I used it or not. Now, what is it about men anyway? They're always trying to get power over you. And if you stand up to them, they don't know what to do. Just like little boys that have been naughty. You know, it's funny. I got my first fortune from kicking a man in the groin. And I got my second fortune from refusing to be a queen. Life is so strange. You couldn't make it up if you tried. Well, now I'm trying to figure out what to do with all that money. Money is just useless if it's not helping people. Well, I've got to go. There's lots more to tell you, but it's going to have to wait. Because as bad as I hate to, I have to say, it's good to quit talking to you. Now go on. Go do something else. Check your Instagram. Bye. Bye.